We can go ahead and introduce ourselves. So I was just telling the people in the audience here, I'm BK Katzmann. I'm a third-year associate in public finance at Ballard's Bar. I use they, them pronouns. I identify as trans non-binary, which is part of what brings me to and brought me to this work originally in law school, and that I've continued doing it for like 6 years now. Yeah, this is the second time I've led a few different trainings. This is the second time we did this one, and it's an amalgamation of a couple other trainings we've done as well. We being Krystal and I.
Yes. So, hi everyone. I'm Krystal Kane, she, her, which apologies to everyone in the room who just heard me say that. BK and I have done this a few times together. Just as brief background, we both did a lot of name changes separately and then met 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Summer 2022.
And started collaborating. I am the pro bono attorney at Blank Rome, and most of my personal practice has been name changes just because I like them so much and I love the clients. And it's like a really good, I don't want to call it bite size because that minimizes the impact, but it is amazingly transformative pro bono you can do in a pretty straightforward manner in a relatively limited amount of time.
And then I recruited Lisa, who has been my co-conspirator at Ballard, and helped me to be able to do all that I'm doing here.
Thanks for using that term, co-conspirator.
I got it from
we
you.
Talked about. I'm Lisa Swaminathan. I'm pro bono counsel at Ballard. My pronouns are she, her. And as BK said, I do this work largely because BK was interested in it. And so we as a firm really started taking on more and more name changes. And I supervise a lot of the work that we do here at the firm, and have found that universally it is a great opportunity. First of all, it's not just great work for clients, but as pro bono counsel, I think a lot about what lawyers want to do and what they can do and make a big impact. And I think name changes are really at the top of my list. You get to work closely with an individual client. The work is straightforward, but it is not intuitive for non-lawyers. So you will find that it's easy for you once you are trained, but it's not easy for clients. And clients really do need the counsel that you're going to learn to provide them. So I'm really happy that you're all here. I'm really happy to get to be a part of the teaching process, and really grateful that BK has encouraged other lawyers at the firm to engage in this.
Can I jump in really fast?
Of course.
I'm Kelly Gasly. I'm the managing attorney at VIP. I use she, her pronouns. I want to start by thanking Ballard and Blank Rome for putting all of this together. For those of you who don't know much about VIP, I know we have a lot of new volunteers actually who are here, which is great. Our mission at VIP is to recruit, train, and support volunteer attorneys who represent our clients living in poverty in a variety of civil legal issues, this being one of them. So all of our staff really focuses on supporting our volunteer attorneys who are handling our cases. My staff does not have caseloads of their own where they're running into court and trying to handle clients' matters. They are really here to support you as volunteers. So I hope if you are all nervous coming in today thinking like, can I do this? The answer is yes, because you have VIP and Ballard and Blank Rome and all of the materials and information we're going to give you today and beyond today behind you. So this is something you can absolutely do, and I'm really excited that so many of you are here to do that with us. So back to thanking Ballard and Blank Rome, we are actually here because VIP over the years has had a small number of clients come through who are in the trans community and would like legal name changes, but we haven't ever had a lot of folks coming through at once, which is why we haven't had one of these trainings before. And there is a real need in the legal community. There are some groups, legal services groups that have been helping folks with this work who aren't able to do that right now. And so Ballard and Blank Rome came to VIP and said there is a need, and Ballard and Blank Rome were trying to fill all of it themselves. I applaud them because they were going, I want to say frantic. I don't know if frantic would be a fair word, but trying to respond to all of the clients reaching out saying, we need help with this. And they were trying, and their materials are incredible and is the basis of everything that you're seeing today. But they came and said, could we do this, partner with VIP to get more folks involved? And so while this isn't an area we've done a lot of work in before, it fits for us, and we're really excited to be a part of this and to help folks who need these legal name changes get them, and to be able to move forward with their life and have a lot of that security in a lot of different ways that this can provide security. So I just want to thank them. I want to thank Elizabeth Lilly as well, who introduced herself earlier. And who created a ton of the materials that you have today. I saw them and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like someone who could work at VIP. This is exactly how we create materials for our volunteers. So, so all of this is really the work of Ballard and Blank Rome. So I really appreciate having you all to lead all of this. And to that, I will pass it off to you all.
Thanks, Kelly.
Before we get started, I just want to throw the things right back at VIP. As pro bono counsel, I'm not allowed to have favorite legal services organizations that we work with, but I strongly encourage lawyers at the firm to volunteer through VIP because they do make it so easy. The training, mentoring, they provide, the referrals are so easy. So we're really grateful to get to work with you on this.
So I want to just thank Kelly and VIP as well. I've had a deal with VIP for the past few years where if any trans clients came through, I would take them. But now they are taking a whole lot more. So I'm very excited to share the wealth a little bit. So this training, we're going to cover best practices for serving trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming clients. We're going to cover what you need to know to be an effective advocate. And we're going to cover what to be aware about, which is changing every 20 minutes, it feels like, and what your trans clients need from you. So the picture on this slide is taken from a Philly Inquirer article that says how to support trans people in Philly, according to trans people. This came up at a prior training where some people didn't know what trans people look like. And the answer is anyone or any, like, you know, there's a whole rainbow of presentations people have, but we thought this picture was a good kind of kickoff point.
And the Inquirer article is linked in the instruction. What is it called, Kelly? Training guide.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. So we're going to start talking about why this matters. Oh, I bet it's not on.
It was on.
Oh. You can also use just the mouse.
The mouse. What happened?
I probably broke it.
Did you guys
Point towards the
Yeah, like I wasn't sure where the point thing, like the.
Oh, wait, was that you?
I don't know. I could
Oh, no. I got it working and pointing and all the things.
Cool. So this slide, why name changes matter. This is taken from the 2015 trans survey. The full results of the 2022 survey have not been released yet. Roughly a third of trans people have been harassed, denied benefits, asked to leave places, or assaulted when showing an ID that does not match their gender presentation. I personally had a client like 2 years ago who had a very masculine appearance and a very feminine coded first name. And he couldn't take money out of his own bank account here in Philly because they kicked him out of the bank thinking it was fraud. So like, this is a very real problem. It's just getting worse.
And the pie chart, right? I always forget this
Oh,
when
yeah.
I do this, right? So the pie chart's actually a different stat. So the identity documents in the correct name and gender, the vast majority have none. Like vast majority of trans folks who filled out this survey have none. And so this is part of the gap we're trying to fill. Next is vocabulary basics. We are not going to go through all of these words. There is such a thing as Google, and that we highly recommend using. And especially when you're interacting with trans people, to not use trans people as your personal encyclopedias. But I do want to at least level set with a couple of these terms and a couple of the ways we will and won't use them. So first, sexual orientation, right? Who you're attracted to, romantically involved with, does not come up whatsoever, or will likely not come up unless it's just part of the conversation, someone talking about their, wife or something like that. Gender identity is what, is your personal internal sense of your gender. And then the terms that are often used, cisgender, actually cis is, need to know whether it's Latin or think it's Latin for same, right? So the same gender, meaning the gender that you identify with the gender that was assigned you at birth. Transgender, I think of it as the umbrella of like anyone who is not, who does not identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. So for me, I identify as trans and non-binary because I don't identify with the gender I was assigned at birth. But some non-binary people like myself don't identify as trans because they think of it more as like the binary or of a different kind of term. So non-binary, you might hear trans men, trans women, but all these terms, and lawyers were pretty good at this actually, of like one term what means one thing in one context for one person, right? And like, so someone might use trans man and it might mean something different for them, or they might say trans masculine, meaning like they identify there's something different about them and different about their gender expression. So that's the next one is gender expression. Feminine or masculine, like how you present yourself, or non-conforming, meaning that I don't wear dresses, right? Like even though I was assigned female at birth. And these terms, and the next one I do want to highlight is really important right now to make sure you can understand and talk about what your assigned sex, gender at birth, right? Because it is coming up with the federal rules and regulate some, I don't even want to call them regulations because they're not yet, but is like trying to make people conform to what was assigned at birth. And then the sex and gender markers is what appears on your birth certificate, what appears on your driver's license, what appears on your passport, what appears in the Social Security system, though it doesn't appear on the card. So to be able to talk about those things with your clients right now, because they're thinking about how all these things will apply. What can it mean to transition? So transitioning means something different for every person. Some people choose not to undergo any medical transition, but will do so socially and legally. Any paths that they take are valid. But what does it mean? So social transition is just a term, and you really don't need to know these terms. You just need to be aware that that the client you're working with is navigating these different like choices and spaces, so that you're aware of like how they might be trying out new names and pronouns, might be changing their appearance over time to see what aligns with their gender identity, using different gendered facilities, or very importantly, having access to all gender facilities, like bathrooms and things like that. Legal, that's the piece we help with, whether it's an actual legal name change or also try to, that first point in order to get your IDs changed, et cetera, gender marker application changes. And then medical will likely not come up. What people do in terms of hormone therapy or gender affirming surgeries, we don't need to know, certainly don't need for any of our templates and information. The one way that it sometimes comes up for me is when we talk about changing their birth certificate. In Pennsylvania, for your Pennsylvania birth certificate, you still need a medical provider to attest to a change in your gender. And so sometimes, but every client many clients are already having medical transition services provided, right? So they do have access to providers in a way that you might not expect. So it's not that you would never need to bring it up, but if it is brought up, you know what you're prepared for.
So pronouns, this is like a hot topic in some government areas. Everyone has pronouns. Cis people have pronouns, trans folks have pronouns. For our purposes, we have this lovely chart sort of showing how to use pronouns and to get them more, to use the flow more naturally. So I've noticed sometimes the first time you might see someone go by Z or Zier, people trip up, and that's okay. Our clients are going to use a variety of different pronouns. Some might not use any, in which case, we'll come back to this later, but if someone doesn't use pronouns, just prefers to be known by their name, in the petition, you would just write petitioner. It feels clunky, but it's correct. throughout. Some clients will alternate pronouns. Like I've had clients who come in with, she/they, and we alternate through the petition. It's all fine. The court has seen a lot of these, like a lot of these. They won't be confused. The judge won't hold it against them. I encourage folks to practice. So like one of the tips I got from a friend was when she got new cats, she called the cats they and them to get more comfortable, like using they and them, like, colloquial, like in her everyday speech. I don't have any cats, but just something to think about if you do.
And
sorry, go ahead.
no, you just reminded me of something. So this training is very focused on Philly and Philly courts, right? And even though we are obviously falling under the Pennsylvania, name change statute and requirements, we are specifically going to be talking about what the judges and procedure is in Philadelphia. And so, right, when Krystal talks about they've seen it all, the Philly judges have seen it all, right? But we are definitely talking about Philly.
Yes, thank you for that. And some of our clients may have actually created their own pronoun set. I had one client who used, I think, pers, like per self, like PER, like person. I worked with that client for a little bit just to make sure I was getting it right, which is totally fine. It's so much less hurtful to work with someone and make a good attempt than it is to just like wing it.
And those are called neopronouns.
Yes.
So also if you want to Google more, that's the term you can look into.
And BK is going to have to probably nudge me a few times because I'll use words that are very kind of centric to the queer community and not realize I'm doing it. Okay. Oh. Okay, so Trans 101. Give your pronouns when you introduce yourself, if you're comfortable doing so. I always do, like I'll say like, I'm Krystal, she, her, and it's kind of just feels natural at this point. Ask your client when you meet them what pronouns they use, with the asterisk if it's a safe space. So like, I wouldn't, greet a client at reception with like 85 people around and be like, hey, what's your pronouns? Like that's not great. And that's kind of a form of outing. But our goal is to make our clients comfortable and to let them know you're safe to work out. And don't assume you know their pronouns based on their chosen name and presentation. Like I'll own it. I've made mistakes with this before. It's always better to ask, even if you feel weird asking someone these questions, than to just guess. And I would, let's see. When I meet clients the first time, I always affirmatively tell them like, hey, we don't have to talk about any medical stuff. You don't have to share anything with me. All I need to know is that you're here and you want to change your name. I'm especially do this if the clients seem nervous because meeting a lawyer is scary, even if like we turn it down a lot. Like, I don't think I'm intimidating unless I want to be. And our clients are misgendered constantly. Like every interaction with someone who doesn't know them, or who does, I guess, really, is a chance for them to, misgender somebody. And can we tell the toe stubbing thing, or you say it better? I'm happy to. If you...
Go ahead.
Okay, so we did I attended a training last summer that BK and some other attorneys put on, and one of the other presenters said that they get misgendered all the time, and it depends on the day. It's like stubbing your toe, which is, you hurt yourself, or you break your foot because you kicked a rock. Like it's
because you stub your, like, if you stub your toe once, it doesn't hurt that much.
Yes.
But if you keep stubbing your toe, you're going to break your foot.
Yes.
That's, yeah.
So,
right. And
yeah.
so it's the like constant misgendering, and you might see that your like client has an outsized reaction to what you did, which is, it is true. It's an outsized reaction, but it's not because of what you did. It's because of everything else they're experiencing. I actually was on vacation with my in-laws last week and used it with my father-in-law, who does not use my correct pronouns, a whole other issue. And he actually finally got it. And he was like, okay, I'll stop saying they is and stuff like that. So that story started working for me. Anything else? We're good. I think
we're good.
Okay. This we had taken actually from Mazzoni's presentation. I really like it. So again, I was a teacher before law school, so this is probably why I like these, like, quiz time. Oops, you accidentally misgendered or addressed someone using the wrong name, pronoun, or honorific. Should you ignore the mistake and move on? Apologize profusely? Explain yourself? Or none of the above? None of the above, right? And this is what I like this because it's what people often do, right? You want to ignore it because you don't want to bother them, or you want to like really apologize because you really want them to really know that you didn't, mean to do it, or like explain yourself. I don't know why people explain themselves, but probably similarly, they apologize. They want there to be another reason. But when mistakes happen, you should just correct yourself, quickly apologize. A quick sorry is nice, right? And then move on. The goal is to keep the focus on your client. And if you do have feelings or, want to talk about like your frustrations, definitely get those out. Just not with that person, right? You can definitely like talk to like another cisgender friend, acquaintance, family member to say, I've been really trying with this client. I felt really bad. Like it's totally normal to have the feelings. You just don't want to put that on the person who, again, because you're going to be trained to do this well, but that person is not necessarily spending their day dealing with other people who are trained to do it well. And then on the cat thing, practice makes perfect. Cat story, using different pronouns for your animals. To introduce yourself with name and pronouns. It can sometimes be, you say, I'm Krystal, she, her. I always say I'm BK, my pronouns are they, them. And then I added to this slide to always use correct pronouns when speaking about others. You really need that to practice, right? So if you're telling like a staff person or someone you're working with, my client can't come in today, they twisted their ankle. Don't, and correct yourself even in, well, actually,
Yes.
next slide.
Okay. So next slide, dealing with bystander mistakes. So that is when you hear someone else misgender a person. So I'm just going to pretend, well, I don't want to use I'll use BK.
Yeah,
My friend, they're next to me. So someone says, oh, BK, he's doing this training this morning. I'll say, oh, it's actually they, them, and then continue the conversation. And now BK can hear me say that. BK knows that I'm not going to misgender them by, calling them him. If BK is not in the room, I'm still going to do that because number one, it's just basic respect for someone's identity in a world that like has been really sucking at that lately, to be totally frank. But you're also showing other people who might hear that you're a decent and safe person. For people who are not cishet, which is cisgender heterosexuals. I use that word too much and forget to define it.
Last slide before we finally turn it over to Lisa. So lawyers really seem to like honorifics, Ms., Mr., Dr., Mrs. Be aware there are other honorifics like mix, which is often used the non-binary MX, pronounced mix. I taught in Quaker schools before law school, since I told you about being a teacher. And it was nice because you could use your first name. So I just used my first name. I didn't have to deal with honorifics, except, I had that kid who felt really bad to use my first name. And so when I came out as non-binary, I had to, I decided, fine, I'll have the kid use mix, even though it's kind of weird. I'm not sure I really like it. And what I learned from that kid is that the more he used mix with me, Mix Katzmann, the more I kind of liked it. So part of it is just, it's different, right? And so like not knowing it might feel weird, but the more we use these things and different things, they actually just feel normal. At the same time, a lot, as we know, I think across all of our practices, there's fewer and fewer honorifics being used, right? So I don't think I ever use honorifics with my name change clients, so I'm not sure you'll need to, but and some people are very vehemently against them. So just be mindful to use the correct one if you're using them.
So how are you going to remember to do all of this? I know you are lawyers, you are probably perfectionists, you like to come into meetings prepared and knowing everything. This might be a situation where you need to ask questions. You don't need to ask your client everything, but you do need to ask what you need to know to interact with them and also to draft the petition. You're going to put their name in the petition. You're going to write their pronouns or something instead of their pronouns in the petition. So ask. You will have intake information from VIP, but like any other client, when you meet them for the first time, you're probably going to ask those questions again. And if you weren't planning on doing that, you should do that because that's how you get to know a new client. So ask your client's name. If you don't catch it, ask them to spell it. Don't assume how to spell it. Don't assume you heard it correctly. Our clients are changing their names to something they have thought about. Their name is important. That is the whole point of the representation. So it is really important to get it right. Can you go 2 slides ahead? Then you're going to have to use your clients' names and pronouns when you talk to them. I'm sure you all have systems for remembering important facts about clients that you're serving in your day-to-day practice. Your client's name and pronouns are always important facts, particularly when you're representing them to change their name. So ways to kind of make sure that you're using your client's name and their pronouns correctly. To the extent you keep client information in your case management system, if you can use their name and gender as opposed to their dead name and their sex assigned at birth in your case management system, that's a really helpful way because whenever you see your client's information, that will be, how they're identified. You can put, if you're meeting with them on Zoom, you can put Post-it notes up on your screen so you see them. Write it down. Whenever I meet with a client, regardless of their representation, I bring up sort of my intake sheet. This is information that should be on your client's intake sheet, and that's worth reviewing before you have meetings with them.
Did we go over dead name?
I don't think we went over a dead name.
So
This time.
I thought Krystal would appreciate that it was Lisa using a term that not everyone would know. So dead name is what many trans people call the name that's no longer there, like the name they use. The name that was assigned to them at birth usually is what people call their dead name. It's the most common way people refer to it. I would say that actually with your clients, you can use that term or just use current legal name. I guess I'm the weird one where I don't consider my name assigned at birth my dead name. But maybe that's an example. A lot of my clients do, right? But I don't. So, to just be prepared that people have different relationships with how they were assigned at birth. But dead name is one of those ways that a lot of trans folks talk about the name assigned at birth.
Thanks. Can you go back 1 slide? So it's important to use your client's name, but there might be situations where you don't want to do that. And you don't want to do that because the client tells you not to. It might be unsafe in certain situations. Maybe the client is living with their parents and their parents don't know that their child's changing their name. So when you meet with your client, you need to have that conversation. You can say something like, I will always use your name unless you tell me there are situations where I should not do it. We actually put that in our engagement letter for representations for trans and non-binary clients. And it helps build, show the client that you're a safe person, that you understand, and that you're affirmatively thinking about their safety throughout the course of the representation. It is also important to highlight for your client that there are situations where you will not be able to use their name, like the caption of the petition. The petition is going to be under their dead name or their name on their birth certificate. That's just what the court requires. And you will also have to put that name in the petition. You should also check, if you're at a law firm, how the client can sign their name. here, clients sign their name however they sign their name. That's a legal signature. And so for our purposes, that's fine. But we do need to identify them by their current legal name in our engagement letter. We also use their name, but we have to have their current legal name in our engagement letter. And so we talk to clients about that. And that's an important conversation to have. Explain the why.
For my understanding, so, because I've heard this in other trainings, and I was correcting someone to say, because Lisa, you had done the research for us about how a client needs to sign, right? And you said that any
Right.
signature.
We've decided that however they sign their name is how they should sign their name. So if they sign their name and it reads like, and it reads as their chosen name, the name that we're legally changing it to, the name they use, that's how they should sign.
So even if it says their current legal name, right? And that like on the line, they can sign, right? Just like anyone can have whatever signature matches.
Right. So our signature block will say legal name and we'll label it as legal name and name. And then most of the time the client signs in their name, not their current, like it reads the signature line, they're writing their name. So if my legal name were Brad and my name was Lisa, everyone called me Lisa, I would still sign Lisa, even though my legal name was Brad.
And I will say that since you did that research and told me, it's been one of the most affirming times for a lot of clients, because they don't think they're allowed to, right? And so when you tell them like, no, you can sign however you want, like whatever you want your signature to be, and so you can sign in your new name. Yeah.
So firms may have different policies, but some feel that legally they need to have designated the legal name, Mary, on the signature block, but it's perfectly fine to sign Brad.
So we actually at Blank
Can you
Room-
repeat the question?
Oh, sorry. So we were just asked to confirm if some firms need to include the legal name and then clients can sign with whatever name they choose. So what we do at Blank Rome is, I think similar to Ballard, we address the letter to their chosen name, and then we have like a block under the signature. We have like their chosen name, then it says current legal name X. So it would say like, if my legal name is Brad, which I don't know, I'm going to use your example. It would say like Brad Kane, and then like, but the letter would be addressed to Krystal Kane, and then I could sign this Krystal and it would be fine.
I think we can skip this slide. I think we've really already gone over this, but be mindful about the name that you're using, why you're using it, when you're using it, and make sure you have a conversation with your client at the outset about the name you're going to be calling them.
Yeah. The only thing I would add that's specific for that is that clients might want something different. I mean, you said this, but I'm just going to make it more like what is sent to them. If you send anything via mail, like, hard mail versus an email, a text message, every single thing could be kind of different based on their safety realities. So be mindful of those specifics. What you said, I just want to make it,
It's an important point.
So I'm going to cover now a little bit about why we are coming in so hot on the how to treat your clients piece. And I'm just going to say it, right? People who are trans in the US have like a giant target on their backs. I mean, they just lived through a political campaign that was basically entirely fear-based, that basically said, hey, like was it Trump or Kamala's for they, them, not you? Like making it very, very clear that like, these are the other, they are bad. They are why eggs are $75 a dozen, whatever. So we're extra careful. So like, it's always been good to be careful, but especially now when, and BK's going to talk about this in a little bit, I think, but there's like so many different laws and regulations and just really stupid and mean stuff happening. So this is the 2015 trans survey. Trans people on average, more psychological distress, more harm on physical and mental health, severe economic hardship and instability, it's hard to get a job when your legal name is Brad and you look like a Barbie doll. People don't treat trans folks well. So you have to show your ID to get a job. Like my client who couldn't get his own money out of his bank account, for example, people face harassment and discrimination at work. I had another client who is non-binary and someone like snooped into their personnel record to find their dead name. Yeah, like people are awful. It's hard to get healthcare because you get different kinds of healthcare access based on your legal gender, like reproductive healthcare, prostate exams, etc. It's really hard for someone who's not a lawyer to navigate this process and to get accurate identity docs. We love paperwork and bureaucracy. It's like super easy and it's really satisfying to just like file something. But for a client, you have to go to different buildings, get all of these, we're gonna talk about this in a minute, all of these money orders, and then deal with people who may not treat you well. You don't know. You hear the word you're going to court and it's just like, and then there's so many more problems like restroom access, appropriate gender facilities in schools, etc. Now, BK is gonna share some good news.
Not at all.
No.
That was like, so this slide, Krystal had actually added to a presentation you had done at Troutman, I think, in January. And in January, the 2025 had not fully caught up to 2024, but it was well on its way. And last week, I added it to our presentation on Thursday, and we had caught up past 2024. And then yesterday, when I was looking at it again, I looked, and I'm not kidding you. There have been 32 new anti-trans bills considered. 10 new bills have been passed since last Thursday. It is truly insane. I highly recommend this website. There's so much information online you can find about what's happening. Translegislation.com breaks it down into, and I think we have a brief on this in the training guide, whether it's about bathrooms, sports, ID documents, birth certificates, all the, things you're probably hearing on the news, right? All of that is included in this figure, but it is really hard. And that's why I asked Lisa to help with these slides.
So it's hard. This is a map that shows where states are in either protecting or punishing trans people. Pennsylvania, which is where your client will live, is a low-risk state, which means there are not laws that are particularly targeting trans people, but there are also not laws protecting trans people. So that's important to keep in mind. You will have to think outside of Pennsylvania, and I'll come back to this in a minute, but your client will be proceeding in you'll be proceeding in the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas. Your client has a state ID from Pennsylvania. But your client also has a birth certificate, which may or may not be issued by Pennsylvania, and laws vary from state to state, and whether and how they can update their birth certificate will depend on where they were born. This is an important map, but it's something you're going to have to keep coming back to because, as BK said, the laws are changing quickly, and it's just not static. And there are laws that target trans people in different states, and I'll come back to this in a minute as well, but part of your job, although you're representing your client in a name change, is to help your client consider what the next steps are after they change their name. And so you don't have to counsel your client on every anti-trans law out there, but you definitely should be counseling them on using their state and other identification documents in their everyday life. Can you add 2 slides, actually? So ID documents. You're representing a client in a name change. Your client might be changing their name for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons they are probably changing their name is to get identification documents that match their identity, that match who they are with their name, perhaps with the appropriate gender marker on it. There are two buckets of identification documents: state documents and federal documents. And this difference is important, not just for how your clients will use their documents, but for the laws that apply. So after your client gets an order for a name change, they can update their Pennsylvania driver's license. This is relatively easy. They go to the DMV with the name change order. They can self-attest to the gender marker if they want to change the gender marker on their state ID. That is the law in Pennsylvania. They also should update, they also might want to consider updating their birth certificate. A birth certificate is a document that they're less likely to use in their everyday life. But applying for jobs, applying for a passport, some benefits, if they don't have a passport, they might need their birth certificate. And it might be easier to have a birth certificate in their name than a driver's license and a name change order and a birth certificate in their name given to them at birth. But state laws vary. And we'll get to this in a moment. You might need different language in the order if they were born in a state that's not Pennsylvania, and whether they can update their gender marker on their birth certificate. We'll come back to this. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying we could talk about it.
Okay.
'Cause this is just an example of what Lisa's talking about it.
Whether those gender marker changes are allowed. Right. So in some states it's easy. In some states it's a little easy. It's doable. And in other states it's just not allowed under any circumstances whatsoever. Sometimes you need a court order. Sometimes you need a doctor letter. The content of what goes into that letter from the doctor might change depending on what state it is. And again, some states will not allow a gender marker update under any conditions ever. In some states, there are litigation over this, so it might change. But again, this is a map that's worth coming back to. Yeah.
Just repeating so I make sure I understand. While, in West Virginia, the process administratively to get the name changed from the birth certificate, it might be relatively easier compared to some of these other states. You still can't change the gender marker on the birth certificate in that state right now.
No,
Okay.
according to this map, which you'd have to double check because I think West Virginia law might be one that's changing. It bans the use of the X marker on your, and there's very few places where you can use the X marker, but that's what that little marker is for West Virginia. The red is where you can't have gender marker changes.
So the map only addresses gender marker changes. It doesn't address name changes.
Correct.
I don't know of a state that won't change your name based on a court order. That is not lawful. Whether one might take that stance, I don't know, but as far as I know, none has yet. So the court order should be all the client needs eventually to change their name on their birth certificate.
Right, and this is something that is rapidly changing, and as well to be aware of is different states. And Elizabeth, correct me if I say this incorrectly, but you have to, some states you have to put special language in, or they'll just write on top of the old birth certificate, right? And with many trans clients, the goal is not to have a birth certificate that shows to the whole world that you've changed your gender and name, right? So you have to be really mindful of each state and look it up. Don't trust this map. It's just an example of I really just put it up to show that there are a lot of states now where you cannot change your gender whatsoever. And that can be, an issue. And actually, that's a good transition back to Lisa, right?
So then the other documents that your client might plan to update are their federal documents. So their passport and their social security card. And there is a lot of misinformation and a lot of accurate, really scary information out there about updating federal documents. Where it is right now, clients cannot change their gender marker on any of their federal documents. And they will probably be issued in the gender assigned at birth, even if they've already changed their gender on those documents. Clients can change their name on those documents. There is no gender marker on a Social Security card, but the Social Security Administration maintains a database with gender markers in it. Clients cannot have that updated either. But again, clients can change their names on both of those documents. Your client might come to you with questions. Am I going to lose my passport? What's going to happen? Can I use a passport as my identification document? Can I travel outside of the country? These are really important questions. And right now, the answer is you can. Again, you can update your name. You cannot update your gender marker. Your passport is valid, and you will be able to use it to enter and exit the country if the picture looks like you. So that might be a really good reason if your client has international travel plan to update their passport now. That said, if their gender marker doesn't match their gender presentation, that might not be ideal if they're traveling internationally. And that's something you want to help your client think through, whether that means they don't want to update their passport right now, whether they might want to put plans for international travel on hold. Clients, all countries are different. And clients have, different appetites for risk, what they're comfortable with, how much value they place on travel, and maybe they want to be able to get out of the country quickly, in which case they really should update their passport. Maybe they want to wait and see what happens. There is litigation challenging what's going on in the passport office right now. It's possible there could be a preliminary injunction. It's possible that there could be a small window of time where clients can get their passports issued with the correct gender marker. But there's a lot of uncertainty. So it is important to talk through with your client when and how they're going to be using their identification documents, how they'll feel using their identification documents in certain situations, what the risks are, what the benefits are. And you're going to have to get comfortable with saying, I don't know. You don't have to talk to your client about every single anti-trans law out there. The goal is not to create more trauma for your clients. It's to represent them in a name change and help them think about what that name change means for them. And you're their lawyer, right? You're not their parent. You're not them. You're not making their decisions for them. You are counseling them. So it's your job to lay out risk, help them think through what those risks are to them. They make their own decisions. A couple things that you might want to keep in mind are, again, specific instances where clients do use their identification documents, voting. I think one thing that is at the top of a lot of people's minds right now is the SAVE Act, which if passed would require identification documents anytime a person registers or re-registers to vote. So if a client has, that might create problems for a client who's had a name change. I think that's it. That's all on that point.
Yeah, I think the point I would just want to highlight that you already said, which is about every client has their own risk profile, is to be mindful of how your client's gender expression and what their documents say might also impact their risk profile, right? And so, right, so some people, it might be more like if they feel like they can't pass with what they have, right? If you don't know that term, like, to be able to have no issues with how you're presented and how it might even slightly mismatch what is on your documents, they might keep what they have and want to keep that. So that's one way that versus like somebody who cannot pass, it sucks, the laws suck, but like they still might want a name change and get as many IDs as possible in what they have, because their day-to-day, they have to show an ID at work or something. And like, this could drastically change. And that's where it could drastically change their day-to-day reality. That's what Lisa's talking about in terms of like where they actually show their ID, what they need it for, which ID, and when. And then the other thing, and I was just gonna share, and you appropriately did not, share my story. Like I did choose to have an X marker on my passport, right? I have an X marker on all my documents, And I made a decision not to go to a wedding in England next month because it's just too risky. I don't want them to take my passport. It's valid. And even though it's valid, I haven't heard real anecdotes of people coming back into the country and having it confiscated or whatever. I just, and it wasn't something I personally, the benefits did not outweigh the risk. Even though the risk was pretty small comparatively, it still was not worth it for me, right? So everybody is different about how they're making decisions. Oh, and on that point, not many of our clients aren't making a decision about whether to go to a wedding in England. I come from a huge place of privilege, right? Being at Ballard and even having a passport in the first place, right? So you're also talking about some of our clients who never would have thought about getting a passport, but now they're scared about leaving the country and want to think about getting, it's a mess of a time. And the more you know, the more prepared you will be for what your clients bring up, but also you don't have to bring it all up.
Thanks, BK. I remember what I was forgetting before,
perfect.
which is mismatch. Your client might ask, do I have to update my documents?
Yes.
And the answer is no, actually. Your client in Pennsylvania, your client can have a name change order and just have the order. They don't have to update any of their state documents. They don't have to update their birth certificate. Even if they update either of those, they also do not have to update their federal documents. There is no law that says they have to do so within a certain period of time. It could create problems if they have a state ID that doesn't align to a name that's in the Social Security Administration system. For instance, if they're applying for a job, and if there's a gender mismatch. So if their state identity document says one gender and the gender in the Social Security Administration database is different, that could also create problems if the client is applying for certain benefits administered by the Social Security Administration and for certain state government jobs that use a federal database that apparently the federal government doesn't even use. And the risk to the client is one, delay in processing, and two, outing themselves as transgender, which is probably why they're updating their identity documents in the first place, which is so they're not outing themselves. So it's something to counsel your clients on. There's no solution. And your client might decide, I'm still going to update my state identity document because I use that on a regular basis. And if I have to out myself in this scenario, that's less risk still than, all the other times I use my document.
Does the court order expire?
I don't think so.
So weirdly, no, the court order does not expire. And the reason I know this is because Nora told me, was it you who told me? It may have been
Nora's
Nora.
a clerk
Oh,
in the court's office.
yes, Nora is the clerk who kind of manages this whole process. She's lovely. She had to go into the archives to get an order for a client, which means it was more than 10 years old. Because I had a client who didn't update their docs in like 4 years. And because of one of my attorneys, it's a long story. And I was talking to Nora and just apologizing. And she's like, no, I had to go to the archives. So like these don't expire. But realistically speaking, your clients will probably lose them if they don't use them in a certain period of time. So make sure they put them somewhere safe.
You can request more from the court.
Yes.
Yes, if you file, which we expect you'll file in form of papyrus, then the court will allow you to get a certain number of additional copies within a year or so. Kevin, have you had different experiences?
I don't know if it's within a year. The Court of Common Pleas here in Philadelphia has a new policy where they won't accept IFPs to waive court application costs, except for certain pro bono organizations. BIP and Mazzoni were both on the list, but you do have to mention that the matter is referred to you through BIP or another qualifying organization. I've had that come up a couple of times last year.
So we've heard that come up. That is not the law.
Or the rules? Yeah,
or the
so
rules.
it is.
So
So we should repeat it.
Yeah.
So Kevin has had an experience that others have had as well, which is that when you run the judgment searches, which we'll get to quickly, at the end of the process or towards the end of the process, there are some clerks who are saying that you can't use, that they are like the attorney certification of no fee or the informa pauperis precipe is not valid, that you have to have come from one of the like legal services organizations. That's not actually true and should not be true. After I talked with you, Kevin, I pushed it up to a supervisor and was told that's not the policy. Doesn't mean they're still not going to say it's the policy. But then this is where, Kevin, you're also correct. These will be referred from VIP. And so you can tell them that, you know, this is actually associated with Legal Services Organization Philadelphia VIP and not have it. You should not have any issues.
Okay, so trauma-informed interviewing. Pretty much this whole presentation until now has covered a lot of it, but I borrowed this from an immigration presentation because I thought it was extremely relevant to what we're doing. You all know how bad the climate is for our clients right now, so it's really important that we avoid re-traumatizing them. So, you know, the first, they call it the 4 R's. Realize that the clients have been traumatized, recognize signs, respond by shaping the interview and the interaction, and then resist re-traumatization. How to practically do that? If you see that your clients are like shutting down and getting like quiet, you can take a break. Like, get a coffee, get some water, ask an unrelated question about their cat or something. Like, sometimes this gets into heavy topics, which we'll talk about when we're going through the petition. And be transparent. Be honest. If you don't know the answer, let them know. Like, as attorneys, Lisa just said it earlier, like we always want to have the answer, but sometimes we don't, especially when things are changing so much. So just be upfront about it. I tend to be way less formal with these clients than I would be in a lot of other scenarios, because a lot of these clients have never met a lawyer, or like have only interacted with lawyers in like less than great circumstances if they have. So just kind of keep the conversation flowing, monitor what's going on. If your client looks uncomfortable or gets quiet, take a break. These can be done really quickly, but they don't have to be.
So I know we're only getting to part 2 and we're an hour in, but I will promise you that because of the amazing Elizabeth Lilly in this room, that the filing guide you have for actually getting this done goes through everything step by step. So we're going to give you a quick overview of the different pieces, but we thought it was more important to spend more time talking about the realities and the challenges you'll have in this moment, especially because it's constantly changing. It's not something, you know, we can easily put in the guide. So we're going to go a little, but just so you know where we're headed, basics of the law, what you have to do to prepare, to file, the hearing, and follow up. And the basics of the law, to Lisa, who always helps me with this.
The good news is that under the law in Pennsylvania, clients can change their name for any non-fraudulent reason, any reason. So frequently clients want to change their name because it's the name they use and they want their identity documents to match. That's all. That's the only reason that you need to give the court for the court to grant a name change. There's an asterisk. There are certain statutory bars, which I think are unlikely to come up. I'll get to those in a minute, but even those statutory bars are probably not actually bars. They're written into the statute, but there have been challenges. And in Pennsylvania, I think on appeal, in Philadelphia, at least, clients have all actually been able to change their names despite those bars.
Oh, and Allegheny County.
Correct.
And
Pittsburgh.
Allegheny County, and some of the surrounding counties as well, too. Also, nobody has to legally change their name to use a different name. In fact, Pennsylvania statute specifically provides for an informal change of name. So if after counseling, your client is like, I don't want to update my documents, I'm just going to keep using the name that I use. Do I have to change my name? No, they can just keep living their lives using the name that they use if that's what they want to do. You will find the statutes at these citations listed here. What is needed for a name change, the law provides exactly what you must set forth, which is basically who the client is, where they live, why they want a name change, what they want their name to be, and that they don't hit one of those statutory bars, which is that they have not committed enumerated felonies or that they have not committed a felony in the past 2 years. The law provides that the court will then set a hearing within 1 to 3 months of the date of filing. It's important to know that in Philadelphia, there will not actually be a hearing. Confirm with the clerk when you file or after you filed, but the judges grant these on the papers. You don't go in, your client doesn't have to go in. It's important to talk to your client about too, because some of them are really afraid of the idea of going into a hearing. Others kind of want to have that moment where a court says, you know, so be it. They're not going to have that moment, unfortunately, if that's what they're looking for. But the court's going to consider the petition. They're going to grant it, which is what makes these part of what makes these so straightforward.
Application.
The law also talks about publication and sealing, and this is going to be really important for your clients. Typically, name changes are public. You have to publish that you intend to change your name, and that has to go into 2 newspapers of general circulation. And then it's a court proceeding. It's open too, like people can see what's going on. But the Pennsylvania statute provides that if the court finds that public knowledge, if publication would create a risk to the client's safety, then they shall waive publication and sealing. There is no discretion if they make that finding. The Philadelphia courts will make that finding. So it's important to talk to your client about that. You will need to talk to your client about, do you have this concern? And again, counsel your client. They might say, no, I'm not worried. Like, I'm trans and I'm proud. That's great. And you should absolutely be affirming of that. But the publication in a newspaper goes to everyone. They have no control. It is now in the public record. It is out there. Same thing with the court proceeding itself. And this is a really easy thing to do for your clients to protect themselves. They never have to think about it again.
Oh, and I just want to add 2 quick things. We're only covering adult name changes right now. The minor process goes through family court and it's pretty different. And I just want to piggyback off of what Lisa said is I always tell clients that it's going in newspapers, but it's also available online, and your dead name and your current and your chosen name will be published together with your like general address. So it's significant security risk. Oh, Kevin.
Yeah, and then to add one more thing. So even though you still can get on public status, waive all court costs, that does not waive publication fees. So I have had in the past a client say, no, I'm trans, I'm proud, I want everybody to know. And I say, okay, great, here's the quotes from the legal intelligence, or we'll waive it. But once you see the quote, some people have changed their mind.
Yeah, there's also a publication cost.
Yeah. But keep in mind, your client has to change their mind about the risk to them, because
Yes.
you will be helping them make the representation to the court that they are afraid of risk, and not having to pay the cost is certainly a benefit as well. Good point. The statute also lays out the procedure, which is that you file, there's this 1 to 3 month waiting period where you will then need to submit additional documents, which we'll get to in a moment. And then it also lays out the bars to a name change. And really the bar is one, this is not a bar, but it can't be a fraudulent purpose. So you can't change your name to escape debts that you owe to people, or to give the impression that you are somebody that you're not. Like, I'm a part of this famous family, so that I'm not actually a part of, like, you can't change your name for that reason. But really any reason that it's not fraudulent is a good reason. And clients who have committed enumerated offenses, there's a bar. They can never change their name. Again, we have challenged that. All challenges have been successful. If you see that your client has committed one of these enumerated felonies, talk to VIP, talk to one of us about what you need to do, because you will need to, you can't make the representation to the court that they haven't committed that offense. But it's not necessarily a reason that you shouldn't move, that your client wouldn't move forward. And then there are certain other offenses, certain felonies. 2 years have to elapse since the date of they completed their offense. So not the date of the offense, not the date of the conviction. Probation has to be done. I believe they maybe have to have paid off court costs as well. I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't think so.
No.
It's probation and supervision. So they
Okay.
have to be completed. But in terms of court costs, you would just have to notify the court that
Got it.
you're changing their name.
That makes
Probation
And
and
then you put for any
Okay,
creditor debtor situation.
that makes sense. We're not Florida. Yeah.
wait, sorry. Just to repeat, because the microphones aren't working in the room. So if you, so Elizabeth, you said they just have to have 2 years since they've completed probation and supervision. If there are court costs, they'll just have to notify the court of the name change.
The question.
Yes.
Relatedly, if they have other pending actions like landlord tenant thing or debt collection or anything like that, can they change the name under those circumstances?
Yes, they can still change their name. There are certain, oh, the question was if the client has like, there's a pending civil action, like a landlord tenant matter, if they owe debt, can they change their name? And the answer is yes, as long as the reason they're changing their name is not to get out of paying that debt. And there are certain notice requirements that go into filing, and BK, I believe BK is covering that shortly. Yes.
I don't know if this is more comfort, risk or legal, but what about immigration status? If they are not, they don't have full legal status under current laws, is it inadvisable to go through a name change, or is it a reason for not granting?
So the question was, what about immigration status and how does that impact this process? I think that first off, the referrals from VIP because of the source, you want to?
Right, is that correct? This referrals from VIP clients will be US citizens or green card holders?
Not necessarily.
No,
Oh.
okay.
Actually, yes, most of the time they will, because
Mhm.
they're coming to Philadelphia legal assistance.
Mhm.
And their requirements because of the funding they receive from the Legal Services Corporation. But we could potentially receive a referral from a different source, so it's not a VIP requirement.
Got it. Okay. So the answer was probably it will not be an issue. I've never had that issue arise in any of our name change representations just because of who's reaching out to us. And I think most clients who have immigration issues will probably come through an immigration legal services organization. But the question is, do they have documents that they would need to change? And if not, then don't do it. And if you have concerns, big red flag, talk to VIP, talk to us. And I think we'll have to think that through. Absolutely. And certainly migrants, documented immigrants, even green card holders, if they're looking to update their gender marker, I think there are some very, very serious risks to their immigration status if they do that I know I'm not competent to advise on, and I need to get them connected with an immigration practitioner. So the answer is probably not, and introduce them to another lawyer.
And just for clarity, since I'm trying to emphasize that like the process is not as difficult as the figuring out of the current realities. What Lisa's talking about is there are threats, and Marco Rubio has put forward that, immigrants coming to this country, even legally, if they have a gender marker that is different than what they were assigned at birth, they're accused of fraud and are not able to come, right? And so that is the threat that is scaring people hugely, right? It is true in it has already become true in certain circumstances that trans people are being considered fraudulent and dishonest. That's what's coming. That was what was said in the trans military service ban. So as things change, to be aware of that concern.
And I just wanted to add too, so I've had a name change client who has a green card. This is pre-Trump. My client wasn't able to update her social security card because we have to update her I-90 first, her immigration forms. So it's not as straightforward as just legally changing someone's name. Like the name change will probably be granted. There's just a lot more to do and different steps to take. And I don't think any clients whose immigration status is up in the air, I don't think they'll be going for name changes right now, just because everything else is so much more urgent.
Do you mind if I just go through quickly? Okay, so the actual process, the first part is the preparation, getting all the paperwork together. You'll have some sort of meeting, a document exchange. We'll go through those documents really quickly. Then you file with the court. Once the petition's accepted, there's a fingerprint card you take, and then there's hearing related. Once the hearing is set, so I like to think about this as like, first you prepare, then you file and have some things with filing. Then once the hearing date is set, then you have some other things. So kind of think about it in three buckets, the work. Right, so I was gonna just go for it. Okay, so the preparation to be mindful is that clients are doing a ton of preparation already. They have to gather certain documents. They're gonna have to get fingerprints done and a physical card. They are gonna have to do a lot of waiting, and then they're gonna have to change their name. I literally put in a million different places. I still haven't changed my name. It's been 3 years, and to make it through all of the different places, I hope someday. So the supporting documents that they will need, this gets attached to the petition typically. That's the template you'll have. And is a birth certificate, copy is fine. State issued photo ID, copy is fine. If the photo identification has a different address than where they're living, they'll need proof of residency, anything, that can show that typically. And then the copy of the social security card. All of these situations, you'll probably be filing in form of papyrus. If not, the filing fee in Pennsylvania is at least $348. It's accurate right now? Cool. And then the last one that's harder is an original fingerprint card. We typically send people to a photo truck in the middle of the Community College of Philadelphia called Rosa's. It costs $25. It's a cost that they have to take on unless you are able to find another support for them. And then once they've gathered all that, you'll put together a filing with these pieces of information that I'm going to go through quickly. And these were the costs associated that kind of referenced that there's like $25 for fingerprints, the filing, IFP, publication. We've talked a little bit about this, judgment searches and how to get those costs waived when you're filing IFP. Okay, so the first part of our filing packet in the template is the attorney certification of no fee. First thing on all of our documents, the caption has in re legal name. We don't tend to put like legal name also known as chosen name. There was, for some time, other practitioners had done that. But it turns out that even though it's sealed and it should be protected, we like to just keep their other name out, right? Because that would actually out someone as trans. So we just use legal name in the caption because you have to use the legal name in the caption, right? So that they're not outed as trans in the caption. There's no need. And also they're not going to be using that name moving forward. So it doesn't, even if it did slip out, it doesn't have potential long-term impact either. The press pay to proceed in form of papyrus, we label attorney certification of no fee because sometimes some of the clerks like it when it says attorney certification of no fee. And the Philly e-filing process auto-generates a press pay to proceed in form of papyrus. So you can actually have both. And that's what our practice is at Ballard, is we just take the one we created that says attorney certification of no fee and the one the court created. And so therefore, if they ask for one or the other, you have both to show them. And recently they've been preferring the ones you've seen, the clerks.
Court generated one.
They've-
Usually I hand them both and they hand me back the certification. They're like, I don't need this.
So yeah, they've been preferring the court generated one because it looks more official, but who knows who you see. So the actual petition, we talked a little bit about this when Lisa went through what you need. This is laid out in the statute. You will receive this template. One thing to notice, oh right, I forgot I did this when we did this presentation. It has animation. So first thing is pronouns. So be mindful of what pronouns you're using to make sure obviously they match your client, what your client wants. Even if they've told you they use one particular set of pronouns, they might want to use something different in the petition, right? How they present. If you've made them feel safe enough to present fully with you, they might not feel that way about the court, right? So they might feel comfortable using the neo pronouns with you, but with the court want to use they and them because they know it's more standard, at least, right? But also, as Krystal said, Philly courts are used to anything. And if they really want it, just do it.
Yeah.
They have to be a resident of Philadelphia. We have to establish that. And then we have to put forward the addresses where they've lived for the preceding 5 years. And there is where we put, if the ID has a different address, submitting the proof of current address, which we attach. Okay. The addresses are also necessary later for judgment searches. Be mindful of birth certificate laws. You may need to put additional information, not just what's here. Here, the template you have is based on someone who's born in Pennsylvania. Check the guides that you have, check the resources we've given you in the guides for other states. Go back to VIP, come to us. We're happy to help figure out the right language to use. And then we have a part, sorry, I think I skipped. No, then we just lay out what the attachments are: driver's license, social security card. Then the next paragraph is whether your petitioner is aware of any outstanding judgments. I usually try to clarify like child custody payments or major part, like a ton of parking tickets, unpaid parking tickets, or
If something has gone to collection.
if something has gone to collections,
Loans,
student loans that have gone to collections.
if they have credit card payments, it's fine.
Credit card
As long as
payments
you're
are fine.
on track with the payments, you don't need to worry about this line where it says outstanding judgments.
Right. So, because most clients are not going to understand what an outstanding judgment really means. And then you have different language depending on the criminal record. We've talked about this, but please, if you're having any issues, please come back because we have found in Philadelphia that none of the statutory bars are bars. And we don't want clients to think that they are definitely bars because we have found success.
I just have to put in, and it's not because the court's doing something it shouldn't, it's because those bars are unconstitutional and we have
you.
successfully challenged that.
Yeah.
Court's following the law.
Thank you. And then we give reasons to change their name. This may be different if you've done name changes before. It may not be different. But our template does not ask clients to give any personal experiences. We literally just assume these are trans clients. They are changing their name because they've been using a different name. They want to intend to use it, better reflect their gender. We have very template, standard language that they can use. You just want to make sure that that is comfortable for your client to use. These are their words that they're verifying, right? And so we don't make them do extra work. It's already a hassle to go through this process. And if they will, I always clarify, especially because of the, power dynamic, lawyers, especially at like a place like Ballard here, like, I'm doing what you want, right? This petition is yours. Like, what we have standard language, so you don't have to, make changes, but we can make changes, right?
So is there, like, you don't have to use all 4 of these scenarios, you have to use one, or like, is there any?
What Lisa said about the reason you have to give is
You have to give any non-fraudulent reason.
So they could just say, this is the name I use.
correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
I use it consistently and intend to continue doing so.
Yeah, you could use, pretty much any of them. We just beef it up, because why not? The next paragraph is about the reasonable safety concern for waiving publication. This is also standard language that we use that we've recently changed also to reduce it down, because we think that people are aware that being trans is less safe than it used to be as well.
There's a question in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Question in the chat.
When you request a waiver of publication, will there be a hearing scheduled on the waiver?
So when you request a waiver of publication, will there be a hearing on the waiver scheduled? No, we have it in the template, what is it called? An order for hearing, order to schedule the hearing. But in my experience, they literally ignore that page and just fill out the page that says we're waiving, the order to waive and seal the record. They just fill that out and upload it.
Yeah. And although this presentation has been Philadelphia specific, and this is the practice in Philadelphia, there's a proposed rule of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court now to standardize this practice across the state.
Oh.
So one of the additional things in that rule is that it removes the obligation to schedule a hearing. So even though there is right now a requirement to hold a hearing in practice in Philadelphia, there is no hearing. The proposed rule would remove that.
Great. There's a proposed rule to change that with the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to standardize what's done in Philly, outside of Philly, basically. So, or parts of it. So that's great. So you do need to establish that, there would be a safety concern under the statute. But as long as the court makes that finding, they have to waive publication. And then the rest of the filing is the exhibits that are attached in redacted form, verification that the client signs, and then the proposed orders and decree. There is a confidential information form, and we redact, right? There's now a confidential information policy in Pennsylvania that you have to follow. These are included in the materials, how to do this and how to redact. There's just a couple things I want to note. One, when we redact the attachments, we typically redact also the expiration and issuance date on the driver's license, because that's usually their birthday. Be mindful of how data is wild nowadays. The first time I did this, I just used a permanent marker, and even when I scanned it, I ran, the searchable PDF thing, and it still could find the numbers underneath. So the way I do it is I actually put boxes over it on the computer, print it and rescan, so that what's printed doesn't have it gets rescanned with just with that ink, right, that had come through. But my other co-conspirator here, Elizabeth, is a magician with the permanent marker and never has a problem. So, but you scan it.
There are 2 ways, at least on Ballard printers, that you can scan things. You can scan it just as a PDF or as PDF with OCR, which means optimal character recognition. That's where you can read it. If I scanned it just as a PDF, the hand redactions work fine, but also.
But then you can still run an OCR, the optical character recognition. But I did that to Elizabeth's just to check, and it didn't go through. So, and then the other thing to note that we've had attorneys here at Ballard is, because attorneys are good, they read the policy and they ask us, well, why do you put current address? You're not required to redact the address under the confidential information policy. We do it as a safety precaution. If you have, it is required under the policy for sexual assault victims. And so we kind of apply it, and the courts are fine with, because they get the confidential information form that translates it. So it's just another layer of protection.
And just to be clear, we do this even though the record is sealed. One, it's a requirement, I believe, but two, there's always a possibility a record could be unsealed and it's still out there on a database. So it's still confidential and should be filed this way.
And then the e-filing process, we have screenshots in the materials to make it easy. And then after filing, you just wait until the filing's accepted. You take or have someone take the original fingerprints to City Hall room 691 to see the lovely Nora. And those get sent to the state police to run a check for the criminal record. You don't do anything else. Once you've done that, you wait for your hearing date. When you get the hearing date, then within 30 days prior to the hearing, you have to do some other judgment searches. This depends on the client, which searches you have to run. If it's just if they've only lived in Philadelphia for 5 years, you only have to do the civil and family court in Philadelphia. If they've lived elsewhere, you have to go elsewhere. I realize we're at time, so I don't want to go too far in when the handouts are going to lay this out step by step, including instructions, including email templates. But no, there is a family search, a civil search you have to run, and then you might have to research other jurisdictions. If judgments come up, you'll have to file affidavits, but most of this, it doesn't happen that often that judgments come up and they're easily resolved.
I just want to add that other counties in Pennsylvania have to accept the Philadelphia court's IFP certification, and most other jurisdictions outside of Pennsylvania will. Just call and ask the court.
And then you can also use online searches if there are online searches that are available. Where is the wording? I think I had it down, but I lost. So, no, it's just basically I usually, when I've done outside of county searches, as long as there's something online, like I did Boston, Massachusetts, and they had everything online. I just did that, took a screenshot of everything and signed an affidavit, included that, and that was sufficient. So as long as the information is publicly available, you can prepare an affidavit. You don't have to get a certified judgment search, but obviously not every jurisdiction has that option. The hearings we talked about, there aren't usually hearings. If there are, come back to VIP because you definitely want more information. I have never had a hearing. And then you get the final decree. We usually ask to pick it up. I've had it lost in the mail. Easier just to pick up the certified copies depending on where you are. You'll first get an email with the electronic copy, and there are instructions about what to do with it, but you'll need to follow up with your client, get them the final decree, or the certified copies, and give them some instructions about what to do next. Anything you want to wrap up?
No, you did that so beautifully and so fast. I just want to add that this is like a uniquely joyful thing we get to do.
The template closing letter has really great step-by-step on how to update stuff, how you're trying to update your documents after they have the degree, including the difference between updating your name and updating the gender marker for different documents. And it's got a suggested order of which documents to update first. And I learned a lot, honestly, with myself. So rely on that closing letter for all of that guidance and walk through that with your client. Very, very helpful.
So there is a template closing letter that walks through it all for those online, if you did not hear Kelly. And then these are the list of records people have to update. the credit bureaus and my credit card were the worst. I wonder if my parents have updated their will. Marriage license I still haven't done. Costs a lot. That's a hard time for clients. You know, I try to tell clients sometimes to start saving, as you know, if they're to be aware of that. And then, Kelly, did you want to? And I can stay for questions. So if anyone has, I just wanted to make sure, and including for questions online, just wanted to wrap up the training. So.
Okay, first, I realized earlier I forgot to thank Adrian Lowe.
Oh, yes.
Lowe, am I pronouncing the last name correctly? Of the AIDS Law Project, and I think that Adrian produced a lot of these. I'm so loud already. Is it because I'm too close to that? Okay.
Yeah.
But Adrian, in conjunction with the JC Adams Identity Initiative, helped create a lot of the documents that Ballard has built upon.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make sure that we thanked Adrian as well for their work in doing this. I don't remember Adrian's pronouns, so I
He, him.
apologize. Okay.
So, yes, Adrian is the basic model that we're following, that he's put together with the AIDS Law Project and the Jackie Adams Identity Initiative. And Adrian is also the one who, I mean, I think there's one other person in Philly maybe, but who has had the criminal record challenges in Philadelphia and that have been found unconstitutional. So.
Thank you. I also just want to implore you to please make sure that you file with IFP status. Some of our volunteers don't do it because it's just so easy to just have their firm pay. And then you realize there's additional costs beyond the filing fee, right? The certified copies, if you need judgment searches done. So please just do the IFP at the beginning, and I promise it will make your life and your client's life much, much simpler. And then please reach out to us with any questions that come up, whether it's support you need, getting things over to City Hall. If you have questions on judgment searches, let us know. We will connect with, we do not know as much as these folks at the front of the room, so we may reach out to them. We may already know the answer at VIP, but please reach out to us. Let us know. We don't want you lost or frustrated during any of this process. And we are here to help. And our office is, I can see City Hall extremely close from our office. I had a really nice view of the Eagles parade. I'm so sorry to say for anyone who did not, but it was lovely. So we are very close. So please let us know how we can help you. So I'm going to send to folks who are virtual, and I just handed out to folks in person, some other upcoming trainings we have. If you're interested in what else VIP does, please do take a look. We help clients in a variety of civil legal issues. So housing issues, family law, defending folks in slip and fall cases, estate planning, it's a little bit of everything. So please keep that in mind. We also, specifically for name changes, gender affirming name changes like we're talking about today, or maybe not just gender affirming, but name changes for trans folks. We have 4 clients who are ready for volunteers right now. We have 4 more that are almost ready for clients or ready for a volunteer. And I expect more to be coming in from Philadelphia legal assistance. So please let us know. I will follow up with an email to everyone just to thank you for coming, direct you again to our resource library that will have all of the templates that have been developed by Ballard and by Adrian will be up on the resource library and the VIP website within 24 hours. So I'll make sure that you all have that link again, but you can reply to that and let me know if you're ready for a case now. We would love to match you. If you want to work with someone, I know a lot of folks who signed up. There are several folks from a lot of different firms that have trained today. We would love to partner you all. If you all want to work, a couple of you want to work together, that's great. We welcome that. Whatever version of volunteering works for you all works for us, as long as we have a Pennsylvania licensed attorney on the case, right? They can be the supervisor, but we do need that. But we really, would love to have you all representing our clients. And a great problem would be if all of these cases fly out the doors, and I'm clamoring to find more clients in need of this. We know that they're out there, so we just need to get to them. We also do other name change work for folks who have other identity identity documents that are mismatched. So you can translate a lot of these skills into helping other folks as well. If you're interested in doing that work, I just wanted you to know that that's available. So lastly, I just want to thank again Ballard for hosting us today, for recording this training. And thank you to our amazing trainers. You all, I learned a ton and just really appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge and experience with us.